everyone, and welcome to the LSU Sports Podcast from the Red Zone Report. I'm your host, Scott Gerard, joined by my co-host, Tommy Johnson and Daniel Zollinger. Today we're going to be getting into some LSU recruiting, one coming and one going, it seems. Also, what the Tigers were talking about at the SEC Media Days. Maybe what some other teams were talking about, since they seem to be on the Tigers' minds. But before we get into that, I just want to go ahead and ask you folks to hit the subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at RZR LSU Pod. And, of course, check out the website at LA Red Zone Report. But I also want to check in with my host. The hurricane has passed. So how's everybody doing down there?
Doing pretty good. Not too shabby. I'm actually up in your neck of the woods in Atlanta right now. So, unfortunately, we couldn't get together and do podcasts together. But we're together in spirit in hot Atlanta. So it's good to be with you, Scott.
Yeah, likewise. I believe the College Football Hall of Fame is directly in between both of us right now. I don't know if you knew that, but it is.
Oh, yeah, that's about right. Downtown. Right around the Phillips Arena, right?
Yeah. That's where they're going to hold the media days next year, I believe, before it goes off to Nashville. How about you, Daniel? How you doing?
Doing well. Good to be back. Not too much really going on this week, but yeah, hurricanes passed, not too much damage. Glad for that. In the dog days of summer now, but ramping up into the fall. And yeah, hopefully we could all get together and do a podcast together sometime this season, maybe for a game. That would be a lot of fun.
Yes, it would. Hopefully one in Tiger Stadium, just to have it out there on the grounds outside of Tiger Stadium where all the good tailgating happens. I can't imagine a better place, except for maybe outside the Superdome in January next year. But long road
Scott?
Between now and there. What's that?
Is that a prediction, Scott?
That is a hope. That is a hope. Prediction means this is what's going to happen, and this is why. I'm just saying it'd be nice to do a podcast outside the Superdome if the Tigers were playing there, because as you may or may not know, that's where the National Football Championship game will be, the final from the college football playoff. The committee had made a special trip down to New Orleans recently to kind of scout the town and make sure everything's going along, and they said it was going along great. So should be a good show, whoever's playing. But as I said, hopefully the Tigers are.
Absolutely.
But to get into hopefully who might be able to help them get there. Well, actually, he's not going to get there soon. But Tigers secured a highly rated tight end out of Grand Junction, California, Central High, Cole Taylor. This is a pretty good get for the Tigers, especially because this guy's pretty big. And I think it also speaks to, A, their ability to recruit outside Louisiana, which they've continued to do, but also B, just recruiting a good prospect on the offensive side, because for a while there, that was a little knock against the Tigers. Other coaches in the SEC would use that against them to dissuade these high-profile offensive prospects, but it doesn't seem to be the case anymore. This is a pretty good get, right, guys?
Yeah, I think so. You know what they always say: you can't teach 6'7". So he's got the raw talent, and he's got he's been blessed with that height that I failed to get. So I'm eager to see him on the field and see him down for spring ball next year if he comes early, or if not, the next year on the field. But all indicators say that this guy is a gifted athlete. So I'd love to see him go over the top and go for some jump balls and use that height.
Right, yeah, 6'7", 230 is a high school junior, pretty impressive. And I watched a little tape of him and him walking out with his high school team, like linked arms, and they're like barely not even coming up to his shoulders, and he's just like standing tall. So yeah, if we can have that presence for a tight end, that'd be great. Since we haven't really had a huge standout, Foster Moore did a good job last year, obviously getting drafted, but I wouldn't say that he was really like the super integral part of the offense. Maybe that's just kind of how our scheme sets him up. But if we can put that in there, then I think that'd be a big benefit. He's only a 3-star right now, but I think most people are saying that he'll be at least a 4-star by the end of next year.
It's funny you mentioned that. I looked it up on the Times-Picayune site. The article said 3-star. Then you go to Tiger Droppings and it says he's a 4-star. So I don't know who, if he'd already gone up between those different publications, or if it's just different rankings. They're not always congruent. So, but I do agree that it'd be great if they could get a tight end into the mix, because they haven't quite done that in a while, and they have a guy on their team. I'm still kind of excited to see. He just hasn't factored in because he's been injured, and that was Thaddeus Moss, Randy Moss's son. So
I think he went down with an ACL injury last year.
Yeah, I know. I'm hoping he's well enough to go this year, because I would be excited to see Randy Moss's son. I'm sure he's probably 6'7", or 6'6". Close. He's close.
Says 6'3". He says he's 6'3", I think, listed on the depth chart. But if he's anything like his dad, he might be able to, take the ball deep, take the top off the defense. So
exactly.
Classic Randy quote.
Classic. The only thing is, I just hope Thaddeus Moss is not getting paid with straight cash, homie.
Right. Hopefully
Just
not.
another Randy Moss quote if you're not familiar.
Oh, right.
I got it.
Yeah.
So the Tigers picked up that recruit, but it looks like they're going to lose another one possibly, because Kelvin Joseph is back in the transfer portal. And this is just starting to get odd, because he was in, then he was out.
His dad said he was out.
Already from the second
that's the one
back in?
No, that's what. No, he was in, and then his dad came out and said he's not in anymore. I'm taking him out the first time.
Uh-huh.
So his dad Joseph stepped in, and kind of took him out of the transfer portal and said he's not going anywhere. And now he's back in, and he said, I'm officially in the transfer portal. So, I don't know what's going on with this. I was talking to me and Daniel were talking about it earlier this week. I guess, the only maybe positive you can see in this is, I guess Derek Stingley's the real deal. And, because if this guy who's been there for a while now is, if he's, not confident that he's going to get any playing time, or not going to get the playing time he wants, it's not Christian Fulton who's taking the playing time away from him. So you got to think it's probably, it's just that Stingley's that good. But
yeah,
I don't like to see him go, and I don't want him to. I don't want to make this trend of losing talent.
Yeah, he's a great player, but I can kind of understand his frustration a little bit if he's been kind of biding his time, and then now getting into, I think it's his junior year, and then this guy, a freshman, comes in and pretty much takes his starting spot that he's been waiting on, and he just really wants to show off his skill set. He even tweeted out a couple of days ago, kind of shopping himself out to other schools. He said, "You can recruit me as a corner, safety, nickel. I'm all that." So he's pretty much putting his skill set online and saying, Come get me. I'm ready to roll.
Okay, but how does he's not going to face the same competition somewhere else? Like, why would he want to leave? Because, like he said, you could use me here, you can use me here. Well, Dave Aranda is going to use different sets, so you would think they're going to find a way to get him in there. Sorry if you lost, what you thought might have been your starting position, but I can't imagine he wouldn't get playing time.
No, I think he would definitely get playing time. I guess it's not the tight, he's not, maybe he thinks he's not going to be first string and he wants that star or that, first string position. But, I've seen a lot of talk about Florida, or talk about Missouri, or talk about Texas. And, a lot of people on those tweets and like Instagram posts that you've been mentioning, Daniel, I don't know if you've seen in the comments, people are like, come to OU, come to Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but the question that I have is, supposedly they tightened up this transfer portal thing, and the NCAA is going to be a little bit more discerning in who they deem eligible immediately. So what is his argument going to be? Because I thought that originally you had to prove that even with the transfer portal, you had to prove that there was some reason you're transferring. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, anybody can transfer, but to be eligible immediately, it has to be for some sort of like hardship. Otherwise, you have to sit out a year.
Yeah, so is he going to be able to prove that Coach O, because they'll say it's the coach treated him badly or something like that. Yeah, a hardship thing. I wonder what his angle is going to be, or is he willing to sit out another year? Because if he's willing to sit out another year, I think that's a dumb move. If you're going to sit out, why would you sit out why would you sit out and not play at all when you could, play some and stay on a national caliber team and not have to redo everything basically.
Right, because next year you would think that Christian Fulton would likely move on, so he would have that spot, unless he's already worried that that's Elias Ricks' spot. But I agree with you. It doesn't make sense for him to transfer and sit out a year because he'd be getting playing time this year. And
yeah, it's not like he's not going to completely ride the pine. He's too good of a player, and there's too much need for good DBs in the LSU defensive scheme, and you don't just need two of them.
Right. It made me think of something that actually Gus Malzahn said at Media Days, and he had made this point that there were more players in the transfer portal right now than there were scholarships available. So
oh, really?
Yeah, I think that some of these kids they like the idea of moving on, but what they don't realize is where are you going to go? Most of these teams have filled up their roster spots, especially with their recent recruiting class. So you can enter yourself in the portal. That's fine. The NCAA has made it easy for you to do so, but where are you going to go? It's just like job hunting. You can, I don't like this job anymore. I'm going to move on. But it doesn't mean that there's immediately something available for you.
Yeah, you can send out your resume to a million different jobs, but it doesn't mean you're going to get one.
Yeah, schools don't just have random scholarships just hanging out ready to give to whoever might enter the transfer portal. Obviously, if you've got some standout athlete, then they might try to make a move to free that one up. I guess you can say like Ohio State and Justin Fields or whatever, but yeah, it's pretty unusual, I think, to just not be utilizing those scholarships.
Well, and the timing for Justin Fields was a lot better for him. It's more advantageous for his cause of going to Ohio State because Kelvin Joseph is entering basically right before the season. So, like Scott said, those spots are probably filled. Or at least you would think that he's not going to be the type of player who wants to go to McNeese or go to a small time school, kind of like how Anthony Jennings went to Lafayette, University of Louisiana Lafayette. I don't think that's what he's looking for. I feel like he's probably looking to go to another national contender, and I just don't know. I feel like the national contenders of the world have their rosters shored up by now, going into fall camp.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. Speaking of, I think Jonathan Giles had transferred to one of those type of schools. I think he transferred to Southern Texas or something like that, which is still just kind of a, what was that all about? But LSU might have another spot opening up on its roster because also at Media Days, Coach O said when asked about Ed Ingram, they said, were you optimistic that he'll be back? And he said he was not too optimistic that he's going to return. I think that was more on I don't know if that was a comment on, what Ed Ingram had to do to get back in the program or just the legal situation that he was in. Because it was, something that happened before he had got to LSU, but it's a legal system in Texas that is playing out. So I was kind of unsure if he meant, stuff that Ingram had to do to get back in good graces with the team or just like a legal system that had to play out. But either way, that's a roster spot technically that's just kind of sitting there. So, I'd love to have the guy back, but I don't know if they're going to have to move on if they can't get him on campus.
It's kind of a sticky situation, and I'm sure that I think Coach O said he said in the past that if everything gets resolved, we'd love to have him back, but that it's a big if, and so I probably agree that if Coach O says he's not optimistic that he's coming back, he knows more than we do. So if he's not optimistic, then I'm not.
Right. Daniel, were you
I didn't really have any take other than that. It's just that it seems like if he gets the legal situation shaken out and then charges dropped or however that finishes up, then yeah, it seems like he could probably get back on the team. But as it stands now, not having too high hopes for that.
Yeah, and we're about to enter fall camp. Yeah, the wheels of justice turn slowly, as they say. So I don't know what would be best for him, but I imagine they're going to figure it out soon. But the show must go on, as they say. But I mean, LSU's. I think they have a good line coming back. Lloyd Cushenberry actually was just named as a Remington watch list, which goes to the top center in the country.
Yeah, he was preseason first team All SEC, so good on him for that. And then they had a couple other preseason All SEC team members that just got announced.
Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I think they had Derek's. Oh no, I'm sorry about that. It was
Fulton and Grant Delpit, right?
Yeah, Grant Delpit and Rashard Lawrence were first team, Christian Fulton second team, and Jacob Phillips third team on the defense. Yeah, and then Lloyd Cushenberry first team on offense. Damian Lewis lineman second team, and then Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson on the third team.
Very nice. Justin Jefferson was actually named to the Biletnikoff watch list. Also, it goes to the top wide receiver in the country. So a lot of Tigers getting some accolades here. It's kind of nice. I mean, if anything, it just talks to the talent that they have coming back. So, some have put them at what I think the SEC said they were going to finish second in the West at Media Days, behind Alabama.
I mean, at this point, you can't really hope for too much more than that, given the way.
No,
yeah.
No, you can't.
We talked about it before, but a second in the West can make it. Can have a better berth into the playoff than the winner of the eventual winner if that comes from the West, or I guess it could come from the East. But regardless, like we said, so I think that it's like we said it time and time again, but it's not a perfect season or bust, and that kind of leads into what we want to talk about with going through the schedule, isn't that right?
Yeah, the schedule's about 5 weekends away, so I think it's about time we looked at it. We can go through game by game, but it starts on August 31st with Georgia Southern in Tiger Stadium, who they actually came off a good season last year. They had a couple down seasons before that, but they were 10-3. They didn't fare too well against the top talent. They lost to Clemson pretty badly, but they had some good wins. So, do you think the Tigers have anything to worry about? Like, is this another Troy, in the making, or are they going to handle business?
No, we're going to beat Georgia Southern. That's the situation. But you mentioned Troy, and looking up and down the schedule here, it's not really exactly a date to circle, but it's a date to keep an eye on. That's Saturday, October 5th versus the Utah State Aggies.
That's a good one.
At home at Tiger Stadium. Utah State is a good team. They're better than Georgia Southern. They finished 11-2 last year, tied for the Mountain West Championship with Boise State. The only teams they lost to were Boise State and Michigan State, and they're returning starter quarterback Jordan Love, who really did well last year. He didn't really get any national accolades, but he's a strong player. And you mentioned Troy game in 2017, that just debacle where we lost, and that was that, and kind of just killed the momentum of the season. Hopefully that doesn't happen here again, but Utah State is a good team, and that's coming off 3 straight weeks where we really haven't played strong competition, because we've got Texas on the September 7th. Then after that is Northwestern State, then Vanderbilt, and then a bye week. So, and then you have Utah State coming into town, and we lost at home to Troy. So I'm a little bit worried about there. I think it could be closer than a lot of people are expecting, especially when the week after that, people are looking forward to the homecoming game against Florida, and so they might be looking past Utah State a little bit. So we'll see what plays out there. Hopefully they blow them out, but we'll find out, I guess.
Well, Daniel, you know what you might want to call this one?
A classic trap game situation.
Trap game. Yeah, it's a trap game if I've ever seen one. You got it. Like you said, you're coming off 2 weeks of not great talent on the field, and then a bye week against a team that Utah State is not a team to laugh at. I watched them play on that the Pac-12 After Dark or whatever they call it. So they're playing those late games, but I've watched them play, and like I said, they're not a bad team, and you definitely have that potential to be looking ahead towards Florida, especially coming after the loss to Florida last year, which was really a debilitating loss for LSU. So I think that's definitely one, like you said, not to circle. It's not a game to circle, but it might be one to put an asterisk by. But I'm sure that the LSU is aware of that as well, and that they will be as prepared as ever.
I agree. It's just interesting to look at the schedule and think, that's probably a given, but we have to watch out for this one. We have to watch out for this one. But I'm looking at it. To me, the ones that stick out obviously are September 7th at Texas, and coming October 12th at Florida. Then after that, it's been the usual gauntlet that they face, where they've got to go, play against the entire SEC West. But they have to go to Alabama and Ole Miss 2 weeks in a row. I think after going to after playing Auburn and having Mississippi State in Starkville before that.
We actually have 2 byes this year. I think that's a new thing that they're doing just to kind of stretch the season out and give the people more rest. I was trying to look back, but I haven't seen that before with 2 byes. They have their first one week 5, September 28th, and then the next one week 10, November 2nd. Have we had 2 byes before?
If it was, I think, weather related.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dana, I don't remember having 2 byes last year. I don't think so, but I might be wrong. Yeah, we definitely did. We had the rain out in 2015, and that one, I guess you can basically call it a bye because they only got about a quarter in. And then there was the game where that hurricane happened. But I think
the infamous hurricane against Florida, to where that just it made Florida and Gator fans not just dislike each other, but it's full on hate now because they're both sticking to their guns about who was wrong in that whole scheduling debacle. I don't know. I think it's fine. They're a permanent cross division rival, so I'd say keep it going. But I think only weather related issues have given us 2 byes. Otherwise, there's only been 1.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks that Alabama might be that one loss, at least on the back end of the schedule. But it'd be interesting to see what the other teams are doing this year. I think LSU is going to redeem themselves against Texas A&M at home. As much as Texas A&M wants to rekindle this rivalry, considering all the stuff that they were talking about at media days, Kellen Mond saying that LSU players were cramping. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Texas A&M and UCF need to just play each other to get this I'm more relevant bowl out of the way, because that's just silly. It's like you won once in 8 years. I think Tre'Davious White tweeted about that. It's like, congratulations. Mm-hmm. Good for you.
Yeah, it's really not a rivalry. Like you said, they've won once, and I think this year we will prove that it is still not a rivalry. I just think also the highlight of that game is definitely Kevin Falk fighting after the game. So, and when he would have won that one too, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with Kevin Falk. So,
well, you might if you were the coach's nephew. Which I guess
I don't know. I saw that guy. He looks pretty scrawny. So
I know, but he you can see him going. There's video of him going up to Jimbo Fisher after the game, and I don't know what he said, but it looked like he said, I got in a fight. And Jimbo looked out in the field and said, with who? Like, who are you fighting? Why are you bothering me? We just won. It was kind of comical.
Yeah. No, the whole thing was a joke, and I mean, we don't have to go over and relitigate the whole thing, but we know who should have won. We know that there were multiple game-ending plays that were then not reviewed or called incorrectly, or penalties not called. So, I mean, the whole thing was just a joke of a game. Quite an unfortunate loss for LSU. But I'm looking forward to that game. I think it'll be a good time to reassert our dominance over Texas A&M. But speaking about y'all want to talk about this we're kind of moving forward in the schedule. We can go back because week 2 against Texas, I think, is probably one of the most important games both for LSU and just nationally, probably since that LSU-Oregon game in 2011.
Yeah, that's got to be the key. It's got to be the key because you can lose, like you said before, you can lose to Alabama, but run the table otherwise and make a playoff. So if we lose to Texas week 2, then with Alabama still on the horizon, your playoff hopes are almost completely dashed already at this point. And that would just be a big deflation, and then who knows how the season would potentially spiral out of control from there. But to win it, that's a huge confidence boost, and you've immediately made your statement on national television, and I'm sure that will put LSU in the top 5, if not maybe the top 4 or 3 teams in the country after Alabama and Clemson, obviously. And then you got a long stretch of maybe not too great competition before you ramp up into the SEC schedule. And so LSU right now, odds makers have them at 9 wins at the season. So you could see maybe Alabama, a loss. Texas, I think, is the number 2 biggest threat. So that if you chalk that up as a loss, and then 1 random SEC loss, which typically kind of happens like last year against Florida. So it's a pretty good number. I'm thinking a 10-2 season overall if we beat Texas but lose to Alabama and then just have 1 random SEC loss, maybe at Mississippi State or at home against Auburn, I feel are 2 good candidates. But if we beat Texas and then roll on from there, I mean, who knows where the sky is the limit.
Well, and you got to think that game, I haven't looked at other schedules, but that Texas LSU game has been talked about pretty much since they made that game. And so it's got to be the game. It's got to be College game day. So
for sure.
I can guarantee they'll be there. It's early enough in the season where it is, we got to feel out these 2 giants and see who's the pretenders, who's the contenders. And kind of like you said about making a statement on the national stage, if LSU comes out on top against Texas, that kind of knocks Texas off of the national conversation because they might, it'll be between them and Oklahoma. But if LSU were to lose, then Texas would still be in that talk, and you could see the opportunity to have 2 Big 10 or Big 12 with 10 teams, the 2 Big 12 teams in the playoff, just by the way that the committee's traditionally chosen. So I think that this is going to be a big statement win, and this has to be not just for the fact of an unblemished season, but LSU has to win this game in order to stay nationally viable, just to take out some of that competition that's also in the conversation.
Yeah, and I think it also plays into just the sheer momentum going into the rest of the season. Because I remember, leading up to the LSU game, granted, they were getting ready for Oregon's offense. And what some of the players, at least on defense, were saying was they were prepping all summer and fall to play against Oregon's offense. So, both sides of the ball were going quickly. The offense was trying to simulate Oregon, and the defense had to respond. So, obviously, LSU, that worked for them. And they said that just got them ready for the entire season. It's that quick pace. I don't think Texas is like that, so I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do to prepare. But a game like that on that level of a stage, if that's how they prepare, then they can take on the rest of their season and have maybe just 1 loss. But, they've got to establish that momentum early because, having Georgia Southern come in, like you said, you don't want them to look past someone before Florida, but I wouldn't want them to look past Georgia Southern before they play Texas because they're dying to go to Austin and win there. But, they still got to take care of that first game at home. But I agree. Well, just the Texas game will kind of set the tone for the rest of the year, and they need it if they want to be part of that conversation at the end of the year.
Yeah, and you were mentioning about the speed of Oregon and preparing for that speed. One thing that they'll probably need to prepare for is Sam Ehlinger. he's being highly touted this year. He had a great season last year. Really kind of made Georgia look foolish in the Sugar Bowl. And, then you can say, oh, well, Georgia wasn't prepared, or Georgia didn't really, they kind of didn't care.
They weren't up for it.
They weren't up for it. They weren't excited about it. But still, I mean, he's a great quarterback. And, when you've got a schedule where you're going to be playing, Tua later on in the season, and then potentially some other great quarterbacks in a potential playoff, it'll be good to get some experience early in that season of an elite, one of the most elite quarterbacks that college football has to offer.
Yeah, and then you mentioned College Game Day for the LSU-Texas game. The only other real big game that week is Texas A&M versus Clemson, which is a rematch of a pretty big game from last year. But I can't imagine ESPN picking that game over Texas and LSU, just two of the biggest fan bases, and just the straight atmosphere in Austin is going to have to be the one.
That and ESPN is they're just straight Texas homers. They love that Texas is back. That's every conversation. Is Texas back? When are they coming back?
You're going to see Corso come out there and put on that big old Bevo head, and everybody's going to cheer.
But he likes to put on Mike's head sometimes, though.
Sometimes. I don't know if it benefits us, but ESPN definitely loves the blue blood programs. But I would agree the game day is going to be there. I think LSU rises to the occasion, and I think they get out of Austin with a win. I don't know if week one's going to be enough of an indicator considering who they're both playing, because while LSU is playing Georgia Southern, Texas has La Tech, but they have them at home also. So it's it might just look like a scrimmage to them.
Heck yeah, Tech, yeah.
Yeah, we need our Bulldogs to come in and knock off Texas,
or at least just wear them down.
Yeah, that'd be great too.
Like even a close scare. If they scare them enough, that plays into it also.
Also, I don't know if either of y'all have heard this, but there's been a little rumors about maybe if the Big 12 breaks up in a couple of years, that Texas could be trying to join the SEC, which would be pretty big, and I'm not really sure how that would shake off. We'd probably have to add another team on the East, obviously, but I don't know if I'd really want to be facing them every single year in addition to the teams that we're already playing, to be honest.
Now hear me out. When we added Missouri and A&M, I thought Missouri was just not a great ad. I mean, who cares? And I thought the whole time it should have been Clemson. And it looked like my prediction had proven right after Clemson, winning multiple national championships. So what if, I don't know, I think Clemson likes their position in the ACC. They like being able to not play SEC opponents for the entire regular season, go in unblemished, and then play them in the playoff. But what if you add Texas to the west and Clemson to the east? I think that would be a pretty formidable conference.
I don't know if
I want to play in that conference.
Yeah, I doubt Clemson would really want to dip out from the ACC. The ACC seems pretty
they've
solid.
got a good thing going.
Yeah, but that's pretty much creating an all-star conference where, it just allows programs outside of that conference to thrive, because now you have all these, it's like the NBA when they put these super teams all in one conference, and, only one team's going to make it out to play for a title. So but then there's this other conference, kind of like the Cavaliers. Like, who was in the Eastern Conference to challenge them? Meanwhile, you had all these teams in the West that were really good. Yeah. So it'd be better if it was balanced. I'd say, Clemson's probably going to stay there. Probably.
No, I'm not saying they would, but that was just my, my.
I thought we had another projection that we could pin you down on later.
No, we can. No, do not put me down for that. Okay. I think that they're happy with their position in the ACC.
Sure. I don't think, I don't know where you saw that, but I don't know that Texas is so ready to play Texas A&M every year again, because that's going to renew that rivalry. And for the while, it doesn't seem like Texas really wanted to. They kind of want to distance themselves from it. So I don't know that Texas would want to hop in the SEC West if it meant playing the Aggies every year, because I think the Aggies could have been given Texas a game all these years that they're rivalry has kind of been suspended because Texas had a down year while the Aggies were going up, or a down trend while the Aggies were going up.
Yeah, they did. Kind of after the Colt McCoy years, Texas kind of fell off, and that was when A&M picked up. They had Von Miller, who was probably one of those first big pickups that went on, in recent years, and then it kind of went on from there.
Yeah, and then once Kevin Sullivan got there, then they kind of
Johnny Manziel, and
I think everyone's eyes are going to be on the LSU Texas game, and I could tell you it could be a good indicator later in the season on where both conferences stand, depending on what LSU does and depending on what Texas does. Now, I don't think Texas would be able to beat Oklahoma just based on what I saw from both teams last year. But other than that, I don't know if there's much to kind of challenge Texas. Just looking at some of their other games, so if LSU wins that game, you'd have to think it just helps them the rest of the year if Texas has as good a record as them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that LSU and Texas are in very similar positions within their conference going into that game, because I think that it's similar to a one-loss LSU team, getting the benefit of the doubt and getting into the playoff. I can see another scenario where a one-loss Texas team that loses to Oklahoma could also get in, so because at that point we're also assuming that LSU is a 2-loss at that point, or 2 or more. So I think that there's a lot to play for, more than just the LSU, who will win, LSU or Texas, and then also there are a lot of implications for each conference and for the playoff in general when these two marquee teams match up in Austin.
So assuming that plays out in LSU's favor, and they go through their schedule and they do not fall for this trap game against Utah State, let's ask this. Do you think that Alabama is the most likely loss that they would have? And if not, who could be a surprise? I think LSU could possibly win that game, but like you said, Daniel, lose one other. I don't know that I'm going to say that LSU would beat Alabama yet. We'll have to see how these first, all the games before November are. But do you have maybe a surprise loss here at Mississippi State, at home versus Auburn, or could it be against Texas A&M at the end of the year?
Yeah, looking at the schedule, I do think that maybe the A&M game right at the end of the season, but I feel like after last year, they're not going to let that happen. I feel like similarly with Florida, I don't know if they would let that happen again. That was a very disappointing loss that shouldn't happen. So I feel like they're not going to sleep on Florida. Maybe Auburn. I think I've heard good things about Auburn this year, so maybe. But the schedule to me looks pretty manageable. Now I think it's ranked one of the stronger schedules in college football. But just kind of going off last year, there were only I don't know. I think that Daniel might be onto something with this. I think that just judging by LSU, I feel like we play up to our competition pretty well. But it's always those weird teams that give us trouble, because talking about Louisiana Tech earlier, Louisiana Tech gave us a scare for a couple of quarters last year. So, it might be that the Utah State game, I'm not going to say it's the most likely team to beat us, but it might be the game that might be, scariest, because it seems like just a random directional school, but like Daniel said, they can play some ball.
Right.
Yeah.
And then talking about the 2017 year when we lost to Troy, that was the same year when we went to Mississippi State and got absolutely throttled. I think it was 35-7 or something like that. And that Mississippi State team was decent, but not incredible. And so it makes you a little bit scared of a similar situation happening here, where LSU is playing well, and then all of a sudden they just don't even show up in one game. And it's really hard to say which game that's going to be, but they haven't really shown me anything in the past few years to prove that that's not going to happen at least once, unfortunately. And then this season you look at the games like at Mississippi State or at home against Auburn, where that could potentially happen. but they're all winnable games, really, except for Alabama, which is very slightly winnable. But
a toss-up at best.
But other than that, obviously LSU definitely has the talent to go 11-1 at least and make the playoff.
Yeah, I agree. When looking at the schedule, I could say that Alabama's, could be the only loss, but that's because I don't know what else the other teams have. Like Auburn, they don't have Stidham anymore, and Ole Miss is starting over with their QB. Florida, we know who they're going to be, but I think since LSU has the home field advantage, they're not going to let that happen. They're ready to put all this hurricane animosity behind them and just take control over that rivalry again. At Mississippi State, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything about any of the teams other than Alabama that makes me think, yep, that's the game that LSU is probably going to lose. I
agree.
I think if they lose, it's Alabama, but it's close. And that, that like we've talked about, that shouldn't hurt them too badly if that's the only loss. Other than that, I don't think there's any other team on their schedule that, that LSU fans have to necessarily be worried about right now.
Yep, and I think we all are kind of on the same page about the schedule. There's always that one game that's scary for LSU. I don't think we ever coasted through a season with just nothing, but there's always some surprises. But overall, like we kind of said, I don't think the schedule looks. There's not some I don't think there are any guaranteed losses on there, and I'm just ready. Man, I'm ready for that Texas game so much.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually almost looking forward to next year when we play Texas at home. That one might even be better, but we'll see.
You guys are looking way down the line. I'm just looking for the videos and the reports to come out of fall camp so we can see, where the team's at before they even face Georgia Southern at home. Mostly, I'm just still kind of dying to know who's going to be returning punt returns, but that's just me. We'll have to see how this schedule plays out. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more knowledge after the first 2 or 3 games to where we can better gauge, the games further into the season. Really quickly wanted to congratulate Daniel Cabrera, actually. He was given the honor of wearing the number 8 jersey, which has become a tradition in baseball, kind of like LSU passes on the number 7. But Daniel Cabrera will be wearing number 8 next year, along with the names of Alex Bregman and Antoine Duplantis, and I think it started with Mikey Montuk. But that will just about do it for us. Guys, do you have any last-second thoughts about the schedule or otherwise?
Nope. Ready to separate the contenders from the pretenders. Hopefully we're in the former category, but looking forward to it.
Tommy?
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Amen. And on top of that, I will add a Go Tigers. So that'll do it for us, folks. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow each of us at Scott Gerard1 and at Tommy Johnson LA, capital L, capital A, and at DF Zollinger. You can also give a follow to the LA Red Zone Report with our pod, specifically at RZR LSU pod. And if you don't mind, consider making a donation to the Support Us tab at LARedZoneReport.com. The more support you give us, the more content we can bring you. That'll do it for us, everyone. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next time on the LSU Sports Podcast.
Take it easy. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers, of course.